to take us through this journey of Humayun tomb on this World Heritage Day.
Thank you, ma'am. This is incredible that we found this opportunity to make hay while the sun shines and everybody's locked up in the house. Usually, we will celebrate World Heritage Day at the IIC have 50 people in the room. And today we have, I think, over 1,500 people listening to this conversation. So very honored to be doing this, ma'am. World Heritage is something which is celebrated the world over, and across the world, every country has World Heritage sites that we are very proud of. Here in India, we are very fortunate that we've had a long association with the Archaeological Survey of India at this incredible site of the Humayun's Tomb World Heritage Site. We've been working here for over a decade now. But what is World Heritage Day? Mandriji, before when he was speaking in the last session, he spoke about the diversity. DG Madam speaking at the beginning of this session talked about the 38 World Heritage sites and 35. But these are all really timeless sites. These are sites that with this new format of Dekho Apna Desh, the diversity of these sites is incredible. There are World Heritage sites almost across the country, and we can spend our whole lifetimes just traveling across India. We have Buddhist sites. It was from India, as we all know, that Buddhism spread across Asia, and we have some of the most significant Buddhist sites protected in India. We've got, of course, great Hindu temples. We were talking about Mahabalipuram in just the last session. Hampi, which is clearly one of the world's greatest World Heritage sites with more ruts. We've got interesting, unique structures to India, such as step wells, which dialogue with both the earth and the sun. We connected to the world. We've got Europe's footprint in India. We've got the churches in Goa and so on. And of recently, most last few years, we've got Chandigarh, Ahmedabad, Jaipur, and portions of Mumbai as whole cities or portions of cities registered as a World Heritage Site. And talking about cities, this is how Humayun's tomb would have been in the 19th century, just about 100 years ago. It doesn't look like Humayun's tomb of today, because over the last 100 years, there has been a lot of development. But Humayun's tomb was really an ensemble of medieval monuments. This was really the first Mughal city. This was really where the Mughals built their garden tombs in close proximity to the Dargah of Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia, and built right next to the river. The river has since receded, so we don't understand this anymore. But Humayun's tomb was built right next to the river. Now, what the Dargah of Nizamuddin did is that we have almost 700 years of continuous building activity here. We've got buildings from the 13th century, 14th century, we've got 15th century, and a lot was built here in the 16th century, a lot. But also building activity continued here all the way till the 19th century. One of the last Mughal emperors were really buried in Nizamuddin. Our engagement, our very long engagement with the Archaeological Survey of India and the Humayun's tomb really started in 1997, when on the 50th year of India's independence, the Aga Khan, His Highness the Aga Khan, gifted the garden restoration of Humayun's tomb to the nation. Now, in 1993, UNESCO had designated Humayun's tomb on the World Heritage List, and one of the UNESCO recommendations then was that the gardens of this site need to be preserved. And the Archaeological Survey of India approached us, and together we fixed the gardens from restoring flowing water, the plantation, and so on. Now, what is interesting is that even though this work took 5-6 years, the amount of money that we spent on this site, the Archaeological Survey of India recovered in excess ticket sales in just over a year. So what other investment really has that rate of return and sustainable? So one-time investment in garden and a little bit of investment in maintenance of these gardens has led to over 1,000% increase in visitor numbers, and it's really the goose that lays the golden egg. It's something that will carry on forever, COVID-19 permitting. Now, in 2007, we were invited back to the site, and we, the Aga Khan Trust for Culture, looked at the larger Humayun's tomb area. It is the larger area which is spread over 300 acres in the heart of the Delhi, part of the capital city, and comprised of 3 segregated zones: that of Sundar Nursery, Humayun's tomb, and Hazrat Nizamuddin Basti. Segregated because even though these zones stand right next to each other, they are inaccessible from each other, and they were divided by major transport arteries in the 20th century. So one of our efforts over the last decade has been to try and bridge these gaps, to literally build connections that people can travel freely through these sites. The overall tourism impact of that could be enormous. Instead of spending 45 minutes at Humayun's tomb, for them, Humayun's tomb could be a day-long destination, which includes food, includes music, includes heritage, includes ecology, includes trees, birds, butterflies, and you name it. In the last couple of years, we've been in touch with the Ministry of Culture to set up a virtual museum also here. So the conservation of Humayun's tomb really was one of the first privately undertaken conservation effort in India. And in that sense, we were trying to establish conservation philosophy. We, over 10 years ago, brought to India this technique of documentation. This technique, laser scanning, was really created to detect leaks in nuclear plants. It's that precise. And today, just over 10 years later, it's become the standard norm. You can get a surveyor to do a laser scan of a heritage site for you. What used to take years or months can now be done in a matter of days. We've worked together with not only the Archaeological Survey of India, but also national and international experts to review proposals for conservation, to review work carried out. And what resulted in all of this effort is we realized very, very early on that if Humayun's tomb was going to be, really brought back to its grandeur, then we needed to place the craftsman as the key or the center of the conservation effort. Now, India is very fortunate. Our country is very fortunate. Mantriji, in his speech, just said, wherever you go to India, you will find the craftsman, you will find the Shilpi. And we are fortunate that India lives in thousands of years together, and we have been able to retain a lot of these crafts. So it's incredible that we've had about 14 lakh fan days of work going into these craftsmen, but them breathing life back into the monuments where it had been it had lost or partially lost. One of the challenges in doing this work at Humayun's tomb is a huge building. It was much greater than any other mausoleum when it was built. When Humayun's tomb was built in the 1560s, it was really also a political statement, and it was what Akbar at that time sort of saying, this is home, this is who we are, we are here to stay, and building his father's mausoleum. Mind you, if you look at that picture closely and look away from the craftsman fixing the leaks in the dome, you can see a lot of local architectural elements that the Mughals incorporated in Humayun's tomb. Just the last speaker was talking about a finial on the Mahabalipuram temples, and Humayun's tomb was one of the first, Islamic monuments to be given a finial, which is really a kalash. The Mughals call it a kalash. And similarly, the canopies, the chhatris, are really Rajput funerary architecture. So all of this was incorporated, making a truly incredible building with no precursor anywhere in the world. Of course, Humayun's tomb was later the precursor to the Taj Mahal. Now, in the 20th century, world over, at every monument, this new wonder material called cement was used. And Humayun's tomb was no different. Through the 20th century, cement was used. And as you can see from this slide, the cement starts significant deterioration in the stonework. So one of the first tasks we did was remove around 200,000 square feet of cement from the monument. And once we did that, these incredible patterns, these star-shaped patterns started coming back. And it was wonderful for our craftsmen to be able to restore these patterns just the way the Mughals had built them. And breathe truly splendor. This is a very interesting view. So Humayun's tomb has got plaster, lime plaster, stone, carpentry, lots of wooden objects, but also tiles. Now, if you look at this 19th century view and focus on the canopy, with the white marble dome, the two canopies in front have this striking blue teardrop color. And when we started looking at the site, when we started our laser scanning and documentation, we realized that a lot of the tiles had left. But we were fortunate that we were able to determine the original pattern, because in conservation, you can't do conjecture. And that allowed us, after 5 years of experimentation, 20,000 samples made, craftsmen from Uzbekistan brought in to help define this work, we were able to treat these canopies and put the tiles back, which for the Mughals were a reminder of home when they came from Uzbekistan and so on. Similarly, for the other incised plaster works, our craftsmen very, very happily matched the work of their forefathers here. Now, this is Neela Gumbad. Now, what is interesting about our approach worldwide? I mean, the Aga Khan Historic Cities program, we work in about 30 countries worldwide, is we don't look at individual monuments, and nobody should be. Just going from the example of Calcutta at the last webinar and the earlier one today, all these sites are huge ensembles of heritage buildings. And now this building was built really in the riverbed, and over the last 30, 40 years had got encroached. In the late 1990s, we started making effort together with the Archaeological Survey of India to start removing or relocating some of the people living here, which was done. And then, as things happen typically in India, all these people were given alternate accommodation. And as soon as that happened, the Ministry of Railways came in and saying, thank you very much. This is really our land. And this is a 1860 map to show that this is our land. So then started another 10 years of effort to really secure Neela Gumbad and put it back. Mantriji, Mr. Prahlad Patel, earlier this year inaugurated Neela Gumbad, and visitors from Humayun's tomb can now go to Neela Gumbad. And this is how conservation can lead to increased tourism, to have sustainable tourism, more hours spent by people at a site, and so on. Now, don't worry, I'm not really going to talk about all of the 60 monuments that we have fixed in this site, but here is a collage of some of these incredible buildings that stand in the Nizamuddin area. And here is a photograph of some of the incredible people who have, over the last decade, worked tirelessly. As I said, 14 lakh man-days of work have been taken by master craftsmen for the conservation work that we've undertaken over the last 10 years in Delhi and Hyderabad. A lot of people understand that the Aga Khan Trust for Culture fixes buildings. A lot of people understand why historic buildings need to be fixed. But we have often been asked, why? Why are you building a city park? And this is something we've done, again, world over. We've built 10 major city parks. And in Cairo, the Al-Azhar Park, which was a gift of His Highness the Aga Khan, today attracts more visitors than the pyramids. Now, can you imagine that in Cairo, where the pyramids are the major attraction, a ticketed park with several facilities attracts more visitors? And And as His Highness has clearly stated, these are leisure spaces and meeting spaces. They're population to mix and integrate. And of course, they're a huge source of employment. So DG Ma'am was very kind in appreciating Sundar Nursery, which even to our own surprise has become a major tourist destination in its own right. Mind you, we're looking at heritage, ecology, culture. And it's only now that we've started looking at tourism infrastructure at these sites. But over the last decade, with the Central Public Works Department and the Archaeological Survey of India, we've created this 90-acre park. Now, mind you, Sundar Nursery was part of the Mughal ensemble of the 16th century. And then when British started building New Delhi, this is where they experimented with plants. So they really got in trees from South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and to experiment with these. Fortunately, all of these experiments failed. And in the end, New Delhi, the city of New Delhi was planted with trees only from India. But Sundar Nursery has about 30 species of trees that are found nowhere else. And to that, there is also the CPWD continues to operate a nursery here. And there are 20 monuments, of which some are very significant sites. So the landscape plan, which landscape architect Professor Shahir developed, was really a congruence between nursery functions, forest functions, and heritage to really create a city park. And all of these functions intermingled with each other in what is today Delhi's favorite garden. We had 300,000 visitors last year, and we hope that once this situation, people will once again come and experience heritage, ecology, nature. Actually a tomb building, but called Mahal. I don't know how these names happened in the 19th century. And this is what it looks like today after some very significant conservation works. One of the real big achievements of the project, of this partnership project, has been to save about 20 acres of land from encroachments. Now, these three monuments designated on the World Heritage Site, but this required about 100 plus buildings to be demolished. And as a result of all this effort, as a result of the effort that we've made in Humayun's tomb, Sundar Nursery, in 2016-17, we were able to add 13 more monuments to the World Heritage List. So what was earlier, when 1993, limited to the 26 acres on Humayun's tomb, is spread over, is now includes almost 14 monuments and includes the buffer zone, which spreads over 200 plus acres. Secured in perpetuity. And the reason we've been able to do that is every site is put on the World Heritage List because of an outstanding universal value. Every site has to demonstrate that this is unique in the world and there's nothing else. And for us, not only is Humayun's tomb unique because it is the grandest of them all, the first of the great Mughal mausolea, but also that it stands within an ensemble of 16th century garden tombs. Quite outside the core buffer zone, we've also been able to spend a lot of effort trying to restore ecology of the area. So this is a lot of portion of Sundar Nursery was really a construction rubble dumping ground, and that over a 10-year period has been systematically planted with native species, creating micro forests that are today enjoyed by thousands of people. This is right in the heart of Delhi, where lotus buds, birds, 80 species of birds have been documented to be resting here. Butterflies and heritage awareness can happen together. We've used these platforms, we've used this potential disappearance to talk about the value of the honeybee and its significance and how to, so Sundar Nursery has become a refuge for honeybees. And of course, awareness of Delhi's local flora. Mind you, almost 100% of people visiting Sundar Nursery are Indians, mostly people from Delhi. So it's excited a lot of people, and a lot of people come for the Sunday farmers market, which is organic and so on. Now, finally, to my third set of the the Tabligh is called Ghiaspur. This is a palace building. It's called Lal Mahal, and it was at least considered for protection by the Archaeological Survey of India, at least till 1946, when it shows up in ASI map. But more recently, the Tablighi Jamaats have sort of demolished portions of this building and occupied it. But it's a great building. It's probably the earliest building in Delhi with a dome and so on. It was built by Ghiyasuddin Balban while he was still a prince. And this is where Hazrat Nizamuddin came to live. And I'm hoping that this building is presently inaccessible, but hopefully one day there will be some action towards putting this back in the public domain and making this very significant building accessible. But Nizamuddin is really known for Qawwali. This is where the Qawwali tradition started. This is where Hazrat Amir Khusro started singing in honor of a saint. It's known for some grand monuments, such as the Chaucer Khamba, which you see on the top right of your picture, but also Ghalib. I was very interested to hear at the Dekho Apna Desh webinar last week on Calcutta, where Ghalib's love of Calcutta was explained. And this is where Mirza Ghalib, the renowned poet, came to rest. So this is where he's buried. We were very fortunate to restore the tomb and the setting. And this is the ASI protected monument as well. There are other challenges of having monuments in an area which is the most densely populated area. This is a 14th century Bauli built during the time of Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia himself. But notice that in 2008, this collapsed. And like many other Baulis, would have had to be filled up. But with a lot of community engagement, we were able to not only relocate 80 people who were living on top of the Bauli to new houses we built for them, but also clean the Bauli of 40 feet of silt and to reveal this incredible well under this. And this is how the Bauli started looking after it was fixed, after the families were relocated. And much to our delight, the Sajjada Nashin offered to give us portions of his house to rebuild this arcade, which was really wonderful to be able to restore an arcade that somebody's predecessors had demolished 100 years ago. But this is the sort of front face of Nizamuddin, and conservation needs to go hand in hand with development. A lot of reasons why we do these projects is to demonstrate how conservation can lead to fulfilling a lot of government objectives, how to improve quality of life of local communities. And we do that across a lot of sectors. So this is the Nala. A lot of the Nizamuddin families were simply throwing their rubbish in. And this was a 6-7 year project with many of my colleagues who worked tirelessly to take it from here to here. Now, this is not only a paint layer, it is retrofitting every house. It's building 200 plus toilets in these houses, building a sewer line. It's setting up a waste disposal system. It's creating awareness with school children and women. And this is how you can make a place worthy of visitors. Not like this, but the same park. We realized less than 1% of people went to parks because these are the parks in Nizamuddin. So we helped making them. I'm going to quickly go through the next few slides. We've done a lot of work in education, so primary schools. We built, Nizamuddin gets 4 million pilgrims every year. So we built community toilets for them. This is, as you all know, a major government of India effort to build public toilets. And 25% of the community at that time had no access to toilets. We were also, once the Humayun's tomb was finished, the local community came us and requested us to undertake the conservation of their mosque. So for the last 5 years, we've been working on this structure. I believe this is the first ever conservation program at any of India's live mosques, and these are very important structures. A lot of the locals have been involved. Local youth have been involved in this conservation effort. There are women who have learned crafts. This is a group of women who make the best korma and kebabs in town. So anyone who wants to order, once all of this is over, this is the place to go. Local youth have been doing heritage guides. We walked about 50,000 students through Humayun's tomb over the last few years. And more recently, in view of this whole COVID thing, our local health group did a house-to-house survey of all 2,000 houses. This is a very risky group, and it was incredible for these women to be really standing up and being counted in the effort when they could do it. It's very important to really, in a country like India, where conservation has so far been seen as elitist, it's very important to demonstrate that conservation can lead to economic opportunities, better quality of life, and there is no reason that cities such as Delhi or Agra, which have three World Heritage sites, would have not the highest quality of life that these sites afford. So to summarize my speech, what have we done so far? We've fixed heritage. We've fixed over 60 monuments in this complex. We've created an ecological zone, mainly for awareness among school children. We've revived food and music and craft traditions. And this has led to Sundar Nursery being called amongst the 100 greatest places in the earth. It's called for the project to be awarded the overall winner for the Responsible Tourism Award. DG Tourism very kindly gave us this award earlier this year. The Honorable Prime Minister has hosted bilateral meetings with Germany at this site. So a lot can be achieved with a bit of effort, but it takes time. So how is it even possible? So one of the first things we did right was have a single agreement with 3 government agencies: the Archaeological Survey of India, the Municipal Corporation, and the Central Public Works Department. So created everybody with disparate objectives, signed a single piece of paper. And since then, we've built several partnerships with tourism, with corporates, with national trusts such as the Tatas, with corporate houses such as Interglobe and Havells, with international governments such as the US Ambassadors Fund, Germany and Norwegians. And this has allowed us to undertake some of the project work that are shown. And finally, I think in these times of gloom and despair, this might be a good opportunity for me to present to you something we've been doing with the support of the Ministry of Tourism for the last 4 years, is create a site museum. So any World Heritage site anywhere in the world, any major site that attracts visitors, has a small interpretation center that displays or explains the site. And all the 25 other monuments that the Honorable Minister mentioned are meant to have these site museums. We've been given the responsibility to build this one, and it's almost nearing completion. The building is done. These are some large galleries which will eventually explain the 15 World Heritage monuments that we will have immersive 3D screens with a virtual museum fitted into it. And in times of COVID, it's even more so to talk about having all this information on the internet and sites being easily accessible. We want to talk about architecture, the influences of architecture on Humayun that led to the building of Humayun's tomb, and how great this enormous building is. There is lots that's been lost, and one of the ways we can present it to the audience is through a virtual museum and projecting patterns such as tile work, showing how jalis were originally made, replicas of canopies to really show, because people are not allowed to access the roof at Humayun's tomb, to show the scale of these buildings in reality, and the link with Nizamuddin and some of the heritage it has. Finally, all of this effort takes an interdisciplinary team. We are at the Aga Khan Trust for Culture in India. We've got about 30 professions on the team working full time, together with expert external consultants, to make sure that our work in heritage benefits from almost every skill available to it. And finally, before I go, there are some interesting ideas that we've had for Sundar Nursery for tourism infrastructure. We realize that almost 70% of our visitors come to see the green. And you can go to England and America and see tropical flora from Kerala, but you can't come to do it in Delhi. You can, similarly, the flora of Rajasthan, the desert climate. So this is a green building that we hope to build eventually under the iconic scheme. It was the Ministry of Tourism's iconic scheme that allowed us to think, or gave us the opportunity to think of what could be done. So it would be lovely to walk amongst treetops, but also none of the heritage sites in Delhi have a proper functioning restaurant, and so the nursery might be the place to really have a lakeside restaurant. So I'm going to, this is my last slide. Thank you all for listening, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Atish. I think it was an amazing presentation, and I think a lot of us came to know of a lot of facts which were not known to us earlier. And I'm sure moment this crisis is over and all of us start traveling, at least for sure, I am going to come and visit this place again and again. Thank you very much. It was very interesting. We have received some questions, but I don't know whether we have sufficient time to answer all those questions. However, I would like if Mr. Janvi Sharma, Joint DG ASI, could come and maybe like to make few comments, or he might have seen some questions, then we can come to the last part of the webinar. Thank you again, Ratish, for such an interesting presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
Janvi, are you there?
Can I be heard, please? Because I think there is some issue with the video, so I can't, unfortunately. But I think I can respond. First of all, thank you for giving this opportunity for me to come and speak. I think in the beginning, the DG had given an overview about ASI's initiatives that we have taken at Red Fort and other monuments, and later, of course, Ratish's presentation, a very comprehensive one, almost taking the entire time, but talking about how multidisciplinary this entire initiative has been, and what has, and how ASI, because most of the monuments do belong to ASI, has played a stellar role in sort of having this kind of partnership, the first of its kind in the country, and hopefully not the last one. So it was a great. I've listened to this presentation, but it's always interesting to listen to him again and again. So thank you, Ratish, very much. Now, some of the questions that I was going through, for example, there was one particular question on how many World Heritage properties. So obviously 38 with ASI 22. There are 7 with the Ministry of Environment and Forest, and there are some World Heritage properties, particularly the cities, and the respective municipal corporations are in charge of those properties like Jaipur, Ahmedabad, and parts of Mumbai. The Bodh Gaya Temple Trust, of course, belongs to the Bodh Gaya Temple Committee. So there are, and then there are 2 properties of the Ministry of Railways, and there are 2 properties which belong to the state government of Rajasthan. That was one I could say. Somebody asked about intangible heritage. There are, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 12 intangible properties as of now that we have on the World Heritage list. And I would also like to mention that ASI is also sort of doing its bit in other World Heritage properties, and because the theme, today's theme, relates to the shared heritage, that there has been proactive, I would say, the role of ASI in engaging with the communities. Now, of course, in case of Humayun's tomb, we were fortunate that the Aga Khan Trust for Culture was instrumental in building or bridging that gap. But in other World Heritage properties, or maybe or the other significant monuments, the role of communities is being increasingly felt as an important role in the decision making vis-a-vis the conservation or the management of these sites. And of course, there are other ministries as well. Ministry of Tourism, we have a regular interaction with. A lot of corporates who are coming forward through various schemes launched by the Ministry of Tourism. The Adopt a Heritage being one of them, wherein that fruitful partnership is budding between corporates and individuals and ASI, and through other instruments like National Culture Fund, also that these mechanisms are in place to sort of invite the partnerships. I don't know if there are any specific questions to answer. I would do that, but I thought I'd say this much, keeping in mind the time that we have at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Janvich. I think it was very helpful. Yeah, so before we close the session, there are two things I would like to say. Janvich had just mentioned about how the participation of the community, corporates, and everybody is how it is very crucial for keeping our heritage, enjoying it, creating awareness, and in keeping it for the future generation. There is a scheme called Adopt a Heritage, which is being run along with by the Ministry of Tourism with Ministry of Culture, where we are going to work with various state governments, with ASI, with the corporates, how to bring the amenities and facilities to the people. But the most important is, and that is my request to all the participants, that let's keep this great heritage in the best place, have more information, care for the ecology, create awareness, and thank you very much for participating. Let me remind you that we are going to have the next webinar on 20th, which is Monday at 11 a.m. on Ladakh. I'm sure it is going to be as engaging as all these webinars have been. Thank you very much for participating and being here. I think we can close the session now.